It's the start of a new year, so maybe you've been thinking about picking up a new hobby. Maybe you want to stop doom scrolling and want to take a break from social media. In this video, I'll explain what neuroscience has to say about why knitting and the fiber arts in general are actually good for you. Can you rewire your brain through knitting? Stick around to find out. Hi, welcome to Musing Maker. I'm Harriet. I've been a knitter and crocheter for the last 40 years or so, and a few years ago I started learning to spin and to weave as well. This channel is where I come to talk about my challenges and works in progress and the things that I get up to in the field of the fiber arts. I hope that you'll find things here that are interesting and useful to you on your fiber arts journey, and if you do, I would sure love it if you would subscribe. My goal for the upcoming year is to try to reach 500 subscribers. There's plenty of anecdotal evidence that people feel better when they're practicing their craft, even if they're working on a challenging project. When we knit, we know that there's an inherently repetitive, rhythmic momentum to the progress that we make. In effect, it's as if we can actually just sort of see the meditation happening. Unlike meditation, though, knitting offers what's known as bilateral stimulation. Put very simply, when you knit, you crochet, you spin, or you weave, you have to use both hands and you use them alternatingly. This gives your brain a greater workout than if you're just basically sitting and staring at a screen. As you engage in this kind of bilateral stimulation, when you knit or crochet or spin or weave, you're also engaging in a kind of creative planning, right? So you're trying to kind of think ahead about the project that you're working on. So if you've ever tried to learn to knit or crochet or spin or weave and just gave up in frustration, that's why. Right? Your brain is, when you're picking up the skills, your brain is being forced to operate on multiple levels and employ different systems simultaneously. And that poses a challenge for everyone's brain, particularly when it's involving a new skill. Interestingly, though, this kind of multi-system brain activity seems to reduce levels of cortisol and boost levels of dopamine and serotonin. Unlike eating a piece of dark chocolate or scrolling your Instagram feed, though, you don't get the spikes and crash of dopamine, right? When you knit, the amount of dopamine and serotonin is just a kind of steady little wash that is going on in your brain. And that's exactly what your brain likes, right? So our brains are kind of like Goldilocks, right? We don't want too little dopamine, but we don't want too much. We want just enough. Okay, so when you knit or weave or spin or crochet, the motor systems of your brain and the emotional systems of your brain are kind of humming along. But at the same time, as I mentioned before, you're also planning and problem solving. So in a way, saying that you're, engaging in mindless knitting is actually a misnomer. Because even when you're engaging in sort of rows and rows of stockinette or rows and rows of garter stitch that you feel like don't really exercise your brain, you're still kind of bringing the executive function of your brain online. But knitting, like spinning, like weaving, like crochet, depends on sequencing, right? It depends on sort of pattern creation. Whenever you're trying to figure out, okay, how many more rows of garter stitch do I need here? Or how many more rows of stockinette before I have to do another decrease? You're basically bringing the executive function of your brain online. So it's not exactly mindless. This raises the question, though, of whether knitting improves cognitive function, right? So we see a lot of hype out there and life hacks about trying to keep our brains young and improve our memory and sort of try to stave off what we stereotypically think of as the kind of cognitive decline that comes with age. If knitting can rewire your brain, can it also then improve cognitive function over time? Okay, the answer to that seems to be mixed, right? Yes, it can, but also no. On the one hand, if you're new to knitting and just learning to knit, then the good news is your brain is getting a workout precisely because it's doing all of that rewiring activity. For people like me who've been knitting for over 40 years, though, when I knit, I enter into what's called a flow state. And that flow state is, restorative and it refreshes our brain. But if you're a longtime knitter, your brain is no longer still needing to, rewire itself to create those neural pathways that it needs to complete the task. So on the one hand, if you're a longtime knitter, will knitting improve your cognitive function? Not necessarily. Not if you're just doing what I referred to before as kind of mindless knitting, right? It'll put you in a flow state, it'll make you calmer, happier, all of those are good things, but it won't necessarily improve your cognitive function. Unless you keep learning new things. So neuroscience suggests that the element of knitting and the fiber arts, right, knitting, crochet, spinning, weaving, that help boost cognitive function is precisely the thing that's happening when our brain is being rewired when we're learning a new skill. So if, as you knit, you continue to learn new skills and learn new things, then yes, you're going to keep rewiring your brain, and research seems to suggest that that's the kind of thing that's going to improve cognitive function. So how about it? Do you have a new knitting or crochet or fiber arts skill that you'd like to learn in the upcoming year? If so, drop a comment down below. In my video next week, I'll be talking about my own fiber arts goals for the upcoming year. So I hope that you'll stick around and come back next Monday. Until then, have a great week.